So while I'm working on this sculpture, maybe actually let me zoom out a little bit so you can see. If you're interested in learning figurative sculpture, you think, oh, that's cool what this guy's doing. He's sculpting a person. This one was from imagination. So if you're interested in learning like techniques for traditional clay sculpting like this, there's a free PDF. There's a link in the description. It's free. And it has a list of all of the free assignments from the Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course. It's called the Figure Sculpting PDF or something along those lines. I don't remember what I titled it. But the link is in the description. And it has all the free lessons. And it's just a great resource. And you can use it as an assignment checklist. That's why I made it, as a way for people to go through, watch the videos, do the assignments, and then you can even create a free account at Proco.com and submit your assignments for critique. And that gives you kind of some accountability. You know, if you say, oh, I'm going to submit one assignment a week, and then you go through and check them off once they're done. If you were to do that, and if you were to sincerely try to implement the things that I teach, you'd be surprised how fast you can improve. You can improve pretty quickly with some good instruction and regular practice. So if you're at all interested in sculpting, I hope you'll check out that free PDF. If you like it, if you like the free content, then you might consider joining the full course, the full Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course, which is a foundational course and goes through everything that I wish I knew when I started sculpting people. And there's also a free PDF for the portrait sculpting course. If you're more interested in the portrait, then that free PDF as a free resource might be helpful to you. And then if you wanted to join the full course, there's also a full premium course with extra content, extra demos, and people that purchase the full course obviously help me out tremendously as somebody that's trying to survive as an artist and as somebody that shares this classical tradition of figure sculpting, which I think is worthwhile. I think it's a good thing. It's interesting and beautiful thing to study the human figure, and I love doing it. And so if you're interested, I hope you'll check out those courses, even just the free content to start with, but maybe if you really get into it, then you'll feel it's worth it to invest in the full course and join me in that course, and I hope you do if it's something you're interested in. And you might try the free content and watch the videos and decide that it's something that's you're not interested in, which is totally fine. I just want to thank anybody that does get those courses. It really helps me out. And anybody that downloads the PDF, the free PDF, I hope you find it useful. There's also an option, if you do find the PDF useful, you can pay for it. There's an option to pay for it on Gumroad. I think the suggested price is like $5, but you can, give a tip or pay for it, but it's free. You just push. If you don't want to pay for it, you just push that 0 on the how much you'd like to pay, and you just get it for free. And that was important to me to create a lot of free content for people to learn how to sculpt, because that's the content that I took advantage of when I was learning. A lot of I also went to college like an idiot and got a degree in sculpting, in art and sculpture. But the free stuff is much more cost effective than the college route. So I would recommend starting with that for sure. Okay, I think somebody's asking what's your favorite genre of in music. Oh, that's a That's a tricky one. Favorite genre. Well, if I had to just like listen to music, like if I was going to be listening to music here, I'd probably just listen to classical music. You know, the classical stuff that everybody's heard. The not the obscure stuff, but just there's something about the way classical music was written. You know, Mozart and Bach and Beethoven and all those ones that most people have heard of. So I do like those, and I think those go really well with, you know, sculpting. It's kind of that tradition of Western tradition of art. But I grew up in the '90s, and so a lot of the music from the '70s, '80s, '90s that I'd listen to on the radio. I was not a big fan of country. There's a few country songs that are okay, but even now I'm not a huge fan of country. I don't know what it is about it, but maybe I need to get a truck and then I'll like country. I don't know. But country's maybe one that I'm not a big fan of, but yeah, if I had to pick a genre, I'd probably go with classical right now. But then they say, like, I was watching a YouTube video that was saying if you want a psychopath, they have to be listening to classical music, like in a movie. You want somebody that's just crazy. And I don't know if that's because they hate classical music, so they make the psychopaths listen to it in the movies to kind of associate listening to classical music with psychopathy, or if maybe there is something that is psychotic about listening to classical music. I don't think so. I think it's just more that people nowadays want to associate those things with being crazy. I don't know. I guess that's off topic, but that's the answer I'll give. That's the answer I'll give for now. Okay. All right. So check out those free PDFs if you'd like to have an assignment checklist and start doing this kind of stuff, sculpting these kind of figures. This one's coming along. It's coming along slowly. I'm kind of trying to take my time and design things in a way that makes sense and still has quite a ways to go before I'll be happy with it. And I have to work out the details. And then I think this one might be one that I'll attempt to turn into a stone sculpture this year. So we'll see about that. I need to produce a couple stone sculptures, and so maybe I'll be doing that this year. All right, thank you guys for those of you that watched, and I hope you guys can stay creative and stay productive. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'll see you guys again in another video. Record this, and let's see. I'm saying hello and welcome. And if you're interested, what I always suggest people starting out with is the PDF that I have, the free PDF on figure sculpting. So it's an assignment checklist. It has links to all of the free video lessons for the figure sculpting fundamentals course. And so it's a great place to start if you'd like to learn sculpting, but you don't really know where to start or what to practice, or you don't know anything about the materials or sculpting technique, and maybe you do know something about some of those topics, and so you can just skip the lessons where you feel like you have an understanding of that topic. But basically what I do is just give you those assignments, and then you can also create a free account over at Proko.com to submit images, and then you can just check it off. So it's just like an assignment checklist that you might have for school or something, and it's a great resource for anybody looking to learn sculpting. Somebody's asking what clay this is. This is Chavant NSP clay. I think this one is mixed with a little bit more hard. So this one has a little bit extra hard clay in it. So I think it's like, maybe it's half medium, half hard. So it's a little bit firmer of a clay. But Chavant is a non-dry modeling clay that I really like. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking out that PDF. There's lessons on all sorts of things, making wire armatures, the starting the sculpture, breaking the sculpture down into simplified forms, texturing, all that kind of stuff. And then if you really like the free lessons, then I hope you'll consider checking out the premium course, the full online course that you can purchase. And there's links in the description for that. Links in the description, or if you're on Instagram, there's a link in my bio that has all my links. And yeah, I really appreciate anybody that invests in those courses. It's something that really helps me out as an artist and as an art instructor. And so thank you, anybody that gets those courses. Somebody says, thank you for your work, brother. Yeah, no problem. I enjoy doing it. Is there any drying clay that can be used without cracking? Let's see. I know there are some air dry clays. I haven't really looked into air drying clays. So I'd have to do more research on that before I could give a definitive answer. Especially since I prefer using a wire armature. I know there's like epoxy clays that you can use, and I'd like to experiment with those because I also haven't done much of that. And then there's, let's see, epoxy clays. There's polymer clays, but you're asking about air dry clay. I don't know, because I think most air drying clay will crack if you have a wire armature inside. Though there's homemade clay that you could make that's called cold porcelain, and I also haven't tried that out, so I can't vouch for it. But I've seen YouTube videos that have talked about it, and it seems like a good air dry option, and it hardens very hard. It's supposed to be like one of the hardest types of clay, once it sets up. That's why they call it cold porcelain, just because it's extremely hard, and it's made with like wood glue and cornstarch, I think, are the primary ingredients of that. And then you go through a process of mixing them and I think heating it up and some other stuff. So that's something that you might look into if you're on the adventurous experimental side of things. If you like experimenting with making your own clays, that might be something you're interested in. So it says, "Hi Andrew, I started my first sculpture hand etude today. Thank you." Thanks, man. Yeah, that's great. Let's see, I don't know if I started your first hand sculpture. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, there's a hand sculpting course, and the hands are tricky, so they're great to practice. And I wish you well with that sculpture. I hope you share it. If you reach out on Instagram and send me a message with your work, I do try to share student work on through my Instagram and other places. So I'd love to see it. And also, yeah, if you have an account over at Proco.com, or if you can create one and share your work there, so that I can see and share it with the Proco sculpting community, that helps us to see and get motivated and be able to see other people's work, which I think is great. Is sculpting the female figure more difficult than sculpting the male figure as far as anatomy is concerned? They're just different. So the female figure is softer, but more beautiful, I think inherently attractive, and so therefore when you make a mistake, it's maybe a little bit more glaring on the female figure. It kind of distracts from that beauty. But on the other hand, the male figure is typically more has more muscle mass, and so therefore if you don't understand anatomy, it can be a little bit more tricky because there's not that softness that comes with a female figure. So both have their own challenges, and depending whether you're a man or a woman, and you have more experience just seeing yourself, then that can also affect how easily you're able to represent one or the other. Let's see. I feel like this leg is not as bent forward as I want. So I'm just going to try to make that adjustment. And then I'll correct it. It's easier to make these adjustments earlier on when you haven't got as much clay on the sculpture. But if it's an adjustment that you feel will make the sculpture better, I think being willing to push and pull things is important. Somebody's asking, what is cosplay? I assume you're talking about cosclay. That's a type of clay that I haven't used. Yeah, cosclay. Cosclay, I haven't used that one, so I think it's like an intermediate between polymer and water-based clay, isn't it? It's like I think Disney, I've heard that they use that a lot in their studios, that it has a lot of the advantages of water-based clay, and that it can be softer, and then it or really soft at the beginning, and then it kind of warms up. So, but I haven't experimented with it, so I can't say much about it other than I've heard about it, and it's probably something I should try to get a hold of. There's a bunch of sculpting mediums that I haven't tried. Onyx Loves on YouTube says hi, hello. I've seen them quite a bit in the YouTube comments. Do you use wax for modeling? Yeah, I like this one. This guy in the background, actually, I don't know if you can see it, but this kind of bodybuilder guy, this is microcrystalline wax, so it's a soft wax. It's a byproduct of the petroleum process, so it's about the same price as most clays. Like, I think I got like 10 pounds for $60 or something, so it's like $6 a pound or something like that. It's a little bit expensive, and I've also sculpted with beeswax. Some types of beeswax are nice. Cause clay. Oh, talking about cause clay, they said it's a little bit flexible after baking. Oh, so it's like for creating like suits of armor or something, for cosplay, for dressing up, or for inventing sculpting outfits, I guess. I think I've heard of that. Somebody says, a good person, a good teacher, and sculptor. Greetings from Georgia, the country. Greetings. What is your goals for the channel? Well, for my YouTube channel, last year, 2024, I had the goal of reaching 100,000 subscribers, and I missed that by quite a bit. So I don't know if I really have any goal right now. I guess I'm just trying to build up these live streams for a little bit. Maybe I want to try it for at least like a month, and then see how it affects things like sales, and if I should be focusing more on these live streams, or if I should focus more on just more edited content. Because when I do these live streams, I found that it's a little bit more difficult to do the more edited videos, just because I feel more drained after live streams. Maybe I don't know, maybe I shouldn't feel that way, or maybe it's just getting used to it, but right now I do feel that that's the case. So my goal with the channel, well, I would like to increase, I'd really like to, 10x the channel, create stuff that's more entertaining. And I've tried a bunch of stuff, and, sometimes I don't really understand why some videos take off, or why some topics take off. And I've seen, I've seen other sculptors that are doing things that I think are, they're fun, but I think, oh, I could do something like that. But then when I do something like that, it's not as doesn't get as much attention. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I guess my goal is just consistency, and trying my best to create decent content and help motivate people to create artistically. I think that's my primary goal. Would you say that it's a good practice to sculpt every part of the body independently before doing a complete figure? I'd probably go the other direction and say that it's probably better to try like these simple figure studies. Like this was one that I just did recently during some live streams, and it's not super detailed, but when you do it small and by hand without using any tools and quick, so this one I think was like 3 hours of sculpting, which for a sculpture is relatively quick. But those gesture studies, I find that they kind of help you to judge proportion a little bit better. And then when you start to focus in on areas, then that's when these individual studies will be helpful. But I think tackling the full figure, doing some gesture studies, learning how to build wire armatures like this, that those are good things to practice even before you're worried about learning how to sculpt the fingers or something, because it just teaches you to approach the figure holistically as an entire body rather than isolated body parts. I feel like if you practice isolated body parts first, then you'll have a hard time melding those in a way that's convincing when you do finally tackle the full figure. So that's what I would recommend, is starting with gestures and simplified figures, and then moving on to more detailed studies of the areas that you struggle with, which are probably going to be the hands, probably going to be the face, probably going to be the feet, probably going to be the hips, this area that attaches to the legs. Those are difficult areas. So, but I think doing small, quick gesture studies is what I would recommend first. Does sculpting a chubby body need any more specific proportions? So the proportions of the skeleton stay pretty much the same. The skeleton doesn't change very much, whether you're obese or fit or super muscular or emaciated, super bone thin. The skeleton itself doesn't change much, so your proportions will stay about the same, but just the amount of mass will change. The where you carry the weight and how the weight is carried will change. But the proportions, like where the knee is, where the hips are, the bones underneath the hips, the shoulders, and the length of the arm, those things don't change that much. It's just what's covering those things, whether it's muscle, whether it's a little muscle, a lot of muscle, a little fat, a lot of fat. The proportions stay pretty much the same. When you make a video, what is your go-to hook for the video? My go-to hook for the video? I don't know. I mean, I try to, so YouTube has a feature where it lets you, see video things that people are searching. So I've tried to answer some of those things. So when people search for, how to start sculpting, or how to sculpt the portrait, or how to sculpt the hand, or or what type of clay to use, or polymer clay versus plasticine clay, like different types of clay. So those videos, some of those have done well on my YouTube channel. Somebody says, I found your YouTube channel very helpful developing my sculpture, for which I thank you very much. Yeah, that's great. So I'm still trying to build a library of content, but I'm always open. People give suggestions, and if you can think of things that you'd like me to cover in videos, I hope you do share those so that I can I usually take a screenshot so that I can save those ideas for when I'm moving on, or when I'm thinking about upcoming videos. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Yeah, miss any comments. But hook, maybe that's maybe it's something I struggle with. So finding a good hook, a good thing. I've been thinking there was somebody that was reaching out that I think got in contact during the live stream, and it's for helping YouTube grow. But one of the ideas he emailed me with was doing a sculpture blindfolded, and I thought that would be a cool idea. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll try to do a self-portrait blindfolded, and see how that goes. that could be a fun one. I could see that content doing well. But I don't know, I guess even if you have a good idea, if you execute it poorly, then it's not going to perform well. And so maybe the execution is what I need to work on. Does the wire frame remain the same for male and female, especially in the hip portion? So I show a basic method for building wire armature, but you can adjust this a little bit. So it's easy to add mass to the shoulders to make them a little bit wider, and it's easy to add mass to the hips to make them a little bit wider. So I recommend generally with the wire armature keeping things thin, keeping things like the hips and shoulders relatively thin, because it's really easy just with a little bit of clay to make this a little bit wider for a female, a little bit narrower for a male. The anatomy of those areas does change based on whether it's male or a female, but those changes are really easy to do with the clay itself. So if you're doing, the only thing I'd say is if you're doing a composition where there's going to be a male and a female interacting with one another, then you need to adjust the height of the armatures so that the height of the male figure is a little bit like an average male height, and the height of a female figure is an average female. So one is a little bit shorter than the other, so that the skeleton starting off with is a little bit, that they make sense going with one another. Because if you don't do that, then you have a male and a female that are the same height, and that might not be what you want. So that's the thing I would say about if you're doing a sculpture where they're interacting, that's when you do have to think about the height. But the proportions are basically the same, and the proportions can be changed as you're sculpting. You can make the head a little bit smaller or larger with clay. That's not a big deal. That's not very difficult. So, but yeah, the hips themselves, the bones themselves are different. So women do have wider hips. That's why there's a little bit of typically gap between the legs on women that are more petite figures, that they're not carrying a lot of weight. There's usually a separation in the upper thigh. And with men, there's typically not that, because the bones themselves are a little bit closer in, and and that muscle of the inner thigh fills in that area on men. So that's just typically what you'll see, and that's because of the shape of the hips and the bones underneath. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Okay, yeah. So let's see, I feel like the legs are a little bit short on this. And for this one, I didn't have a wire armature. I just had a piece of wire, so you can see that piece of wire right there. But I feel like the legs are a little bit short. So I'm actually just going to take this off of the base for now, because I need to reattach it anyway, and that'll make lengthening the legs a little bit easier. Because I prefer, maybe these legs are about average, but I prefer a little bit longer legs. Rather than risking the legs being too short. Because a common beginner mistake is making the legs too short. So here I'm just pushing the foot down. I'm going to lengthen that foot, or that leg. Same thing on this side. Kind of like stretching it out. I'm also going to actually separate these, and I'm going to try to bury this wire of the armature a little bit more into one leg, because I don't like how I can see this wire for the armature. I'm just going to take this and just push it in. And you can see I'm making some pretty big adjustments, so that's one thing I'd say, don't be afraid to make adjustments when you're sculpting. Especially when you're, like, this one's from imagination, and so sometimes things are going to be off just because it's difficult to sculpt accurately. So I'm pushing this wire deeper into the clay. And then I'm going to add some clay around it. This table that I'm working on, because the backboard I have just a piece of foam, and I can hear it bouncing just because it's not the table's not the most sturdy table. So when I move things around, it's kind of bouncing. According to you, what's the most tricky part to sculpt? The portrait. Portrait's hardest. Portrait's hardest. The eyes, starting with the eyes. There's a lot of reasons for that. Primarily, we're just really good at facial recognition. So we're really good at seeing when something looks off when it comes to the face or the eyes. And so that means that we have very little room for error without it becoming like glaring that there's something that's off about the sculpture. So the portrait is the most difficult area, and the most difficult part of the portrait is the eyes, getting the eyes right. After that is probably the hands, because there's so many angles, and just understanding the hands is tricky. So I'd say the hands are probably next, and then maybe the feet are last. And then, some areas are tricky, like just the hips, the hips and around the pelvis is tricky just because because a lot of things are going on in those areas. So there's a lot of muscles and the bones, and there's just a lot going on, and that makes it more complicated. Does hashtags in the video description help you see the video? I don't know. I don't know how they work. Some platforms encourage hashtags, and some platforms have started to discourage hashtags when it comes to the algorithm. So I think the main thing is it's just the content. Like there's people that always try to hack, like what hashtag could you get that'll make it go viral, or what topic, or what this or that. But it's really like, can you just create something that's entertaining and fun to watch, or that's informative to a lot of people that are interested in that topic? And if you can do that, then you'll find the views. So I just haven't been able to do that to the extent that I'd like. And maybe there might be a lot of pieces of that. Maybe I need to have more humor in my videos. Maybe I need to create sculptures that are more impressive, or I need to work on the editing part of it and have like the pace more more fast pace, or I don't know. But there's a lot to it. What's the time here? So right now it is, what time is it? It's 1:44 p.m. So just 1:44 p.m. is the time right now where I'm at. So he says, I was thinking of trying to replicate the sculpture of Adam made by Rodin. Or Rodin. I always assume it's Rodin. Is it a good idea trying to replicate the master's work, or should I start lower? No, I think that's a great place to start. Yeah. If it's a sculpture that you like, that you're inspired by, and you think is impressive, then one of the best places to start is to just replicate works of art that you like, and you'll be able to learn a lot from that, and try to mimic the style of whoever you're copying. Master studies are great. And that's how people used to do master studies and apprenticeships with artists, and you don't see that a lot anymore. But it's a great place to start, and I think a lot of people could benefit from some thoughtful master studies. Let's see. Yeah, you can see how difficult it is to lengthen the legs. I have to change a lot. I'm pushing things around, and this sculpture, once I'm done with this particular session, it'll probably look a little bit worse than when I started, because I want to lengthen the legs, and so that's why getting the proportions in at the beginning is so helpful, because if you don't, then you're going to be doing what I'm doing, which is moving things around once there's clay in place, and you have to redo a lot of sculpting, and it could just be it's just more work than if those proportions are in place from the beginning. Pushing that calf muscle down. I still want to lengthen this a little bit. Hi, should we focus on one sculpture at a time? I'm in Italy, and I won't understand your answer, but I will try. So if you should do one at a time, I usually have several sculptures going at the same time. That's just how I like to work, so that I can switch from one to the other, and that I don't get overwhelmed, or if I do, I can just move to another sculpture. So personally, I prefer to have several projects going. That being said, if you do that, there's a risk of not finishing what you start. So it's really important to finish the sculptures that you start. Get them to the final stage, whatever that is, even if it's just a study. Like, get it to the point where you can take pictures of it and post it, or whatever the purpose of the sculpture was. If you're trying to get it to where you could sell it, then finish it, cast it, paint it, whatever you want to do to finish it. But finish it and build a habit of finishing your sculptures, because if you don't build that habit, you'll never be able to make it as an artist. You have to finish what you start. So whether you're working on one sculpture at a time or several, just try to be able to finish what you start. Somebody's asking, do you have any goal for this piece, casting it? Maybe casting it, but primarily I'm thinking that it'll be a reference for a piece of stone that I have, for a stone sculpture that I'd like to do. So that's the thought, but maybe I'll cast it and try to sell some of these some casts of this sculpture. That might be fun. Andrew, do you know the old fantasy movies with the creatures of Harryhausen? His sculptures were cool. He used them for stop motion animation. They were made out of latex. I don't know if I'm familiar. Maybe I've seen them. I've probably seen them, but I'm not good with the names of things, but I think I have seen some stop motion like sculpting that they used to do with the classic videos before modern VFX and stuff, which is pretty cool. And even today, some videos, some series rely on those traditional sculpting techniques, and I think it's fun when they do that. What can I add to my clay to increase adhesion? Well, it depends on what type of clay you're using. If it's water-based clay, then you just add water to it and it softens the clay, and you knead the clay together, and that's how you do it. If it's an oil-based clay, you can add like baby oil or different types of like microcrystalline wax is kind of sticky, and so it might help. But you just have to, whatever type of clay you're using, you could probably look up what people have added to it to make it more stick to itself a little bit easier. But that's the tricky part of sculpting, is getting a clay that'll stick to itself but won't stick to the tools. That's like the ideal sculpting medium. Thanks for all the advice. I will definitely join on Proco. See you, man. Yeah, see you later. I hope you do, and hope to see your work over there. So look forward to that. And again, there's a free PDF that has all of the free lessons from the Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course. It's in the link in my bio if you're on Instagram. It's the link in the description if you're on YouTube or wherever you're watching this. I'll try to have a link for it, and it's a great resource for just learning to sculpt. It's got the assignments right there, so just do the assignments and submit those and learn sculpture. There's no reason not to if it's something that you'd like to do. Let's see, I'd like to push this ankle out a little bit. I'm trying to I'm looking at the gesture from this side, and I like this gesture to kind of have this foot tucking under, but it's kind of tricky. Golden Voyage of Sinbad, Clash of the Titans, and Jason and the Argonauts are some of his movies. He made a Medusa, Talos, the Skeleton Army, and Cyclops. I think I have seen some of those clips of those stop motion sculpture animations. Yeah, it's cool stuff. And that's how you had to do it back then. There was no VFX, or there was no computers to render stuff. And some of the stuff that once they started with VFX, the sculpted stuff often looked a lot better. Is the energy or force imp in sculpture as in drawing? Is the energy or force in sculpture as in drawing? That like the same, the energy, force, or maybe difficulty? Are you talking about difficulty, maybe? Well, sculpting takes more time. It's more, it's more difficult because you're working in 3D. You have to think about the forms in space rather than in 2 dimensions. So there's trickier parts to sculpting. But I like the finished product of sculptures. Well, I like some drawings too, and I am. That's one of the things that I've been doing a lot more of lately is drawing. And I do think that both are helpful tools for artists. But let's see. But as far as like how much effort it takes, to be good at anything, it's going to take a lot of effort. So it takes all you have to become, a master at whatever you're doing. I remember when you did a stop motion video too, Mr. Andrew. Oh yeah, the stop motion with the wire armature of like the dancing. That one's a classic. I was up till like 4 in the morning, and I thought it was pretty funny. More important. Oh, is sculpting. Is energy or force important in sculpting as in drawing? Energy or force? You might be referring to like the gesture or the movement. Energy. I guess you could call that the energy of the pose or the force. Yeah, I think movement or gesture is important in any type of art, especially figurative art, because we are, human beings in motion, and so if it feels static and dead, then it's not gonna connect and look as good as if there's some life to it and some energy to it. And that comes with observation and understanding how the figure works, and looking for gesture, not just the gesture that connects the entire body, but the gesture of the individual forms. The gesture that runs down the leg to the foot and all of that, and that's what I'm trying to lay in here is those gestures as I'm re-sculpting the legs, basically trying to include those. Yeah, talking of stop motion takes so long, especially claymation, when you're actually sculpting each one. Though I haven't done proper claymation. The stop motion I've done is just with armatures and stuff, but I would like to do some proper claymation sculpture. Maybe a video of like taking a sculpture and then having it say something, just like a phrase or something. But it takes so much time. And you'd have to like re-sculpt the position of the mouth for each syllable. But that might be a fun thing to try to do. I feel like the length is feeling a little bit better. Let me check. It's still not long enough. Gotta stretch out this leg even more. What was your most difficult obstacle when becoming a sculptor? Probably just the financial side of things, figuring a way to monetize and building the online course took like 2.5 years, working on it part-time before I received my first paycheck when it came to that. And so the monetization, well, with anything creative, monetizing it is difficult because there's a lot of people that want to monetize it, and there's not a lot of people interested in purchasing art related stuff. So there's a lot of people producing and not a lot of people purchasing, which always makes marketing art tricky, marketing creative things tricky. Man, look at that. That just totally destroys the gesture when I lengthen that out, but had to be done. Yeah, that's not... Yeah, I had to... This is like the surgeries where they break the legs and then lengthen them, except in clay. So yeah, the monetization, and that's what people always ask about, like, hey, how do you make money? And I'm like, I'll let you know once I figure it out. I'll let you know as soon as I know. Because the way I went about it is, it's difficult. Difficult to monetize. But I mean, just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's more difficult than it would have been, 100 years ago. 100 years ago, I just wouldn't have been able to be an artist. I would have had to do different things because the way that I teach and make money in the arts is using technology and online and all that stuff. So those things weren't available. Trying to think about how I want the base to be. I've seen a guy make $15,000 with prints. He has been creating for 3 years. Well, 3 years. Is it 15,000 in 3 years, or 15,000 per year, or 15,000 a month? Because those are very different things. But prints are great. Maybe I need to take my sculptures and take nice photographs and then sell them as prints. Maybe that would make it more accessible to a larger audience. No, that was his peak month. Okay, so 15,000 a month is very, very, very good. Yeah, that's the top. Yeah, that's the top 1% of artists for sure. Yeah, maybe that's something I should look into, is doing prints of like sculptures or drawings, turning them into prints. Somebody says, well, what makes good money is 3D sculpting. When you're sculpting, what are the signs that a sculpture is good enough to sell? 3D sculpting. Yeah, well, I don't know. 3D sculpting, any type of sculpting is tricky because, people won't pay as much for a 3D sculpture as they will for different type of sculpture, but you might be able to sell more of them or have a wider audience or something like that. Somebody says, I'd love to be a millionaire and just sculpt though. Yeah, yep, wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? We'd all like to have the money, but we don't want to make the money. That's, I'm right there. I'd like to have millions, but I don't want to do the work of actually creating something that people are willing to spend millions of dollars on, or helping millions of people with something. Well, I would like to help millions of people learn sculpting, so maybe that's the trick, is I just need to figure out how to help more people learn. I think you could make a lot of money, make more sculptures of well-known people or characters from movies, etc. Yeah, maybe. That could be. I've thought about doing some videos of sculpting characters from either mythology or from books, like doing my own version of different characters. So maybe that's something that I'll do at some point. Maybe even during these live streams, maybe I could do that, and then I could edit it down to a shorter video as a way to create some interesting content. A lot of people are afraid of doing art, though. Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of people are afraid of trying to make art their full-time thing, that's true. So I think a lot of people that maybe could be successful aren't, because they never really try, because they think, oh, it's not possible from the beginning. And I know some artists that, felt that way, and then they went into something that they thought was more practical. And I talked to an artist that became a dentist and does dentistry, but then he also did a sculpture show recently, and that was a cool thing. And he was somebody that had learned from my online stuff, and he did pretty well. He did pretty well in the sculpture show I was a part of, and that was cool to see. Maybe not everyone is destined to be an artist. Well, definitely not everyone, because, not everyone's interested in being an artist, but even artists, a lot of artists are not interested in creating art all the time when you have to do it to make a living. Like, they like it as a hobby, but they wouldn't like it as a obligation or a source of income. Make sure I didn't miss any comments. I don't think I did. Okay, let's see. Where are we going? Okay, so again, if you're interested in sculpting at all, I hope you'll check out that free PDF on the figure sculpting fundamentals assignment checklist. It has links to a bunch of free lessons, the description of the assignment, and then you can just check it off as you watch the lesson, do the assignment, check it off, and it's a free resource. I worked really hard on the PDF and the free lessons that are available, and so I hope you'll take advantage of those if you're interested in learning sculpture. And then if you like the free stuff, then maybe consider becoming a premium student, getting the full Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course over at Proca.com, and there's links to that in the PDF as well. And I appreciate anybody that does that, because it really helps me out and helps me to be able to create more of these videos and demos. And there's also some in-person workshops that I'm going to be working on setting up. So if you think you could travel to Iowa, where I'm at, to come and sculpt with me in my studio sometime in the summer of 2025, look out for that, because that is something that I'd like to get going, and I'm excited to do some in-person workshops and things like that. So he says you should do a sculpture of Donald Trump with security personnel where he has been shot and is raising his fist upward. Yeah, that's an iconic image. Maybe I could do, maybe not super realistic, but like this kind of sketchy gesture type style, because that's a little bit quicker of a style, and then do some of those. That could be a fun sculpture. Okay, thank you guys for watching. I hope you check out those. You can check out my ebooks as well. There's an artist X-ray vision, one on the female figure, one on the male figure, and those are also a great resource for anybody interested in representing people. It has just visual diagrams that I found useful as an artist. So I hope you check those out. As always, stay creative, stay productive. So he says we love it because it's hard. Yeah, that's what she said. Well, I shouldn't say that. Let's get it, Andrew. Sounds good. I will see you guys around. to this live stream. I'm going to be working on this sculpture that I started previously, kind of a female figure, and I'll be transitioning this. I think I'll add some drapery. I'll probably also add a pregnant belly. I've been wanting to do some things pregnancy related, some more sculptures that are centered around pregnancy and motherhood. And so I think I'm going to change this design up just a little bit in that way. Hi, hello, welcome to the live stream. Now if you guys have questions, I'll respond to those. Otherwise, I'll just be working. As always, you can find links to my sculpting courses in the description. Those are a great resource to learn sculpting if you're interested, if you'd like to have an online course that walks you through everything you need to know. The Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course is a great place to start. There's also a portrait sculpting course that goes a little bit deeper into anatomy and those types of things. And also a hand sculpting course, because the hands are another difficult part of the body. So those courses are available, and I really appreciate anybody that invests in those courses. Alright, I believe for this one, the only thing that I have supporting it is a piece of wire, and so I'm just going to be kind of adding some clay here. Like I said, I wanted to have this be maybe a pregnant female figure. I also will probably add like a drapery as if she's wearing like a tight dress that'll come and flow down and then maybe go in actually into the base. And hopefully this will be a design for a future stone sculpture is what I'm hoping for. But if you guys have questions or anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to be probably just sculpting. This hand, I'm not a huge fan of what's happening with this hand, so I'm just going to go ahead and cover it up and figure it out afterwards. I'm not worried about it. It'll kind of get lost in this belly area, pregnant belly. It says, listen to the crickets. Yeah, that's something that people mention, that they find the crickets to be soothing. which I think at this point it's kind of a calm cricket sounds. In the beginning of the spring, the crickets were so loud, they were just like yelling at. There were so many crickets, like right after it would rain. Here around the edges of the barn it gets damp, and so there would just be so many crickets. Crickets like the damp area, from what I understand, after I looked it up, and they were really loud to the point where I'd hear them like on my, tried to record some audio, and I was like, oh man, that's almost unusable because the crickets were, it's hard for the AI to sort out the cricket sounds. But now it's not too bad. I don't mind it too much when they're a little bit quieter than they were. So peaceful, yeah. This clay is Chavant NSP medium mixed with hard. This one has a little bit more of the hard, so it's a little bit firm during this, for this type of work. So I have to hold it in my hand and warm it up a little bit before it becomes malleable. asking, are you planning on selling this sculpture? Maybe I'll cast this and sell it as a sculpture. It'll probably become a reference for a stone sculpture. That was the original kind of thought behind this design. But I've also been thinking more about making limited edition casts more, try to do that more and sell those as, for lower price points. Where a stone sculpture, not a lot of people have thousands of dollars to spend on a sculpture, but they might have, $100 or something to be able to purchase a smaller one of a kind, or a smaller sculpture that's one of a series, not one of a kind, but a cast of a series of 20 or whatever. And so maybe that'll happen with this. I haven't decided yet, but I'd have to finish it to know. But I'm definitely not opposed to it. So maybe once it finishes, I'll look into that. But I guess as an artist, you really shouldn't spend too much time on working on something that you won't sell, or that's not a concept for something that'll later become a sculpture that you want to sell. If you're a professional artist, if your plan is to make money by selling your work. So the answer, I guess the long answer is yes. I'm planning on selling this, whether it's as a stone sculpture or maybe casting it in resin and selling it that way. Do you plan on making a line of motherhood sculptures? Yeah, I'd like to. Well, not just motherhood. I'd like to also, like I did the a sculpture of me holding my son, like a fatherhood sculpture. So a series of parenting sculptures. I'd like to kind of move towards, motherhood, fatherhood, and family sculptures, because I feel like that's something that I'd like to do, and I feel like it's something that is important and that we could use in society as a celebration of the sacrifice that parents make, and kind of turn back to that. And so that is something I would like to do more of. Motherhood, fatherhood, both of those themes, and doing more sculptures in that line of, or in that theme of parenting. Takes a little bit to work the clay. That's the thing about having a firmer clay, is I need to work it a little bit by hand and warm it up before it's malleable enough to put on the sculpture. Let me grab something to put this on top of. Just to lift it up a little bit. Ooh. That camera cut out. Oh, shoot. Buenas noches, señor profesor. Buenas noches. Para mí es como mediodía. A ver, ¿qué pasó? What happened? I lost the connection. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. The wire got bumped and then goes offline for a little bit, but I think I got it back. kind of looks like the Little Mermaid to me. Somebody says, yeah, the way this the bottom of the legs and the dress are come together is kind of like almost like a mermaid fins or something. As if it was a tight, I'm imagining like a tight dress or something like that. But it does kind of give that mermaid vibe. And the hair as well, I guess the swoopy hair. I wanted to include some of my abstract style, and so I thought I would do that in the hair. Maybe I'll do it down here in the dress as well. So sounds like a good idea. Yeah, we'll see. I'll have to see how I want to do this. Because I don't want the feet, I don't want it to look like the feet, like the large feet or something. I want it to feel like fabric or a dress or something. Let's go. I can go in and abstract and add to it a little bit. Let's see. Zoom in just a little bit more so you guys can see what I'm working on here down at the base.
show you something Jesus is doing?
Yeah. I'm doing a live stream, but yeah, you can show me.
Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Say amen. Say amen. Good boy.
No, that's great. Thanks for showing me, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Somebody's asking, can you make a portrait? Well, this sculpture has a portrait in it. It's a little tiny one. But yeah, I've done portraits. I've done a lot of portrait sculptures. There's one of my favorite lessons that I didn't feel like it got the attention that it deserved was on Portraiture 10 Steps to Portrait Sculpting. That's on the main Proco 3D channel. And that's a really approachable way for people to sculpt a portrait. And so if you're interested in portraiture, you might check that out, and I think that'll have some helpful tips for anybody that wants to do the portrait. Maybe I'll do another portrait sculpture sometime during these live streams, or maybe edit some of my portrait. There are some things that I wanted to fix on it, so that might be something that'll be coming up. I'm coming up on 2 hours for this sculpt. I think, I'm happy with it. So when I started, it was just a nude. Now it's more like looks kind of like draped, at least from the belly down, draped. And before it didn't have the pregnant belly, and now it's. I wanted this to kind of be based on motherhood and pregnancy, and so I'm going to. And then it didn't have this kind of dress that's happening at the bottom, and I think that it's looking good. I like kind of it going into this abstract, flowy forms of the dress. I think that's fun. Still need to work in the details, the hands and the face and things, but I'm feeling a little bit better about it than before, than 2 hours ago, and so happy with that. If you're interested in sculpting, there's the Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course at proco.com/sculpture. That's a great resource. There's a portrait sculpting course at proco.com/portrait sculpt. And if you're interested in portraiture, then definitely check out that course because that's a great resource. And there's the hand sculpting course at proco.com/handsculpt. And currently I'm working on a stone sculpting course that hasn't come out yet, but it'll hopefully come out within the next couple of months. And or we'll start releasing lessons for that, and that should be another great resource for anybody interested in sculpting stone or even like wood or things, subtractive sculpting where you're removing material. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope that you guys can stay creative and stay productive, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon in another live stream or another video.